have our scripture reading today, and it's found in Ruth. That is right before 1 Samuel. It's on page 188 in your pew Bibles. If you would like to follow along with me, I would encourage that. Ruth chapter 2, beginning in verse 1, and we will be reading down through verse 16. Can everyone hear me? Now Naomi had a relative on her husband's side, a man of standing from the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, "Let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor." Naomi said to her, "Go ahead, my daughter." So she went out, entered a field, and began to glean behind the harvesters. As it turned out, she was working in a field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Elimelech. Just then, Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters. "The Lord be with you. The Lord bless you," they answered. And Boaz asked the overseer of his harvesters, "Who does that young woman belong to?" And the overseer replied, "She is the Moabite who came back from Moab with Naomi." She said, "Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters." She came into the field and has remained here from morning until now, except for a short rest in the shelter. So Boaz said to Ruth, "My daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with the women who work for me. Watch the field where the men are harvesting, and follow along after the women. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you, and whenever you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars the men have filled." At this, she bowed down with her face to the ground, and she asked him, "Why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner?" And Boaz replied, "I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with a people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. May I continue to find favor in your eyes, my Lord," she said. "You have put me at ease by speaking kindly to your servant, though I do not have the standing of one of your servants." At mealtime, Boaz said to her, "Come over here, have some bread and dip it in the wine and vinegar." When she sat down with the harvesters, he offered her some roasted grain, and she ate all she wanted and had some left over. And as she got up to glean, Boaz gave orders to his men, "Let her gather among the sheaves and don't reprimand her. Even pull out some of the stalks for her from the bundles and leave them for her to pick up, and don't rebuke her." May God add his blessing to the reading of his word this morning.
So I think we've all been taught this, and we probably, as parents, we taught our children, and as grandparents, we probably reinforced what our kids have been teaching our grandchildren. So one of the things we teach them is manners, right? So please and thank you. Those are the first two words, right? Please and thank you. How many times have you said to your child or to a grandchild, "Now what do you say?" Thank you. Very, very good. Right on cue. It didn't cost me a thing yet. And of course, when they want something, what do you say? "No, please." Well, there went the reward. No, I'm just. So, manners. It's the way we treat one another, right? We employ manners in treating one another. And it's not just please and thank you. There are other things that come along with learning good manners. And when I was growing up, I was taught all these simple things like let a lady go first, right? Open the car door. I'm sorry, honey, I've been doing that. Well, no, I've been doing a lot lately. I've been getting a lot of caught up, right? So assist a lady with her coat, or with the chair. Open and close the car door for a lady. Walk on the curbside when escorting a lady. How many of you guys remember that? Walk on the curbside when you're escorting a lady. Today is, what? Mother's Day. All right. So this day has been set aside to remember and to recognize the ladies in our life. The moms, the wives, the grandmas, and I would argue also, of course, all the ladies in our lives. It's a day on which most of us will give some special treatment to the ladies in our life, right? All women are mother figures. Now that doesn't mean all women really do a good job of being a mother figure, but all women are mother figures. There's something built in, hardwired in for just about all the ladies that I can think of. And so whether or not they have their own biological children, they're mother figures to others, to the children, like in a church. All of you ladies, you are mother figures to all of the kids in church. And those ladies who are in their mature years are mothers to all of us. There are some who are of my parents' generation, and I kind of look at them fondly since my parents are no longer alive. They're like, mother or father to me. So we need to treat all the ladies as mother figures. And of course, we recognize the moms and the wives who are the mothers of our children, and we remember the grandmas, and we need to treat them with great respect and love. And that involves more than just, giving them a card or calling them if they don't live near you, or sending them flowers, or taking them out to eat, or grilling out for them, cooking them something, or just telling them Happy Mother's Day. All those things are good, but it really involves more than that. Why the story of Ruth? We're going to look into that. Boaz illustrates for us the way to treat a lady. Think about how he treated Ruth. So we're going to look at some principles that we can draw from there about how to treat a lady, how to treat the moms and wives and grandmas and the mother figures, in our lives. So the story. Ruth, she had a couple of sons and her husband, and they were in Moab, and she lost her husband, she lost her sons, and one of the daughter-in-laws stayed with her own folks, and that's okay. That you would expect that. But Ruth chose to go with Naomi, to go with her mother-in-law. Now that is one great daughter-in-law, huh? So she goes with her mother-in-law, Naomi, back to Israel, back to live among the Israelites, to live among Naomi's people. Now, Naomi had a relative on her husband's side from the clan of Elimelech, a man of standing, whose name was Boaz. This is a well-respected guy in the clan and in the community. And Ruth the Moabitess said to Naomi, "Let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain." So she was going to go out and just whatever happened to fall that the harvesters didn't get, and she was going to go out and follow along behind them. Naomi said to her, "Go ahead, my daughter." So she, Ruth, went out and began to glean in the fields behind the harvesters. As it turned out, there are no coincidences, are there? If you're a believer, there are no coincidences. So I found that phrase, as it turned out, really? She found herself working in a field belonging to Boaz, Naomi's relative, who was from the clan of Elimelech. So the first principle, the biblical way to treat a lady is to honor her humility of heart. We're going to see that unfold in how Boaz related to Ruth. But think about it. She humbled herself, went out into the fields to glean. I mean, people who didn't have much are the ones who had to glean. They had to come along and just catch whatever leftovers on the ground that they could, just to live, just to survive. So we need to honor the humility of heart that we see in the wives, the moms, the grandmothers, the mother figures in her life. We need to accept their self-giving sacrifice. Receive it. Accept it. Acknowledge their spirit of sincerity. Appreciate acts of selfless sacrifice. Not too many years ago, there was a commercial that would almost always run leading up to Mother's Day, and it depicted mothers fainting in response to receiving a phone call from their son or daughter. Now, you may not remember that commercial, but it was probably an AT&T or something like that. But it was like they receive a call from their son or their daughter, and they faint. Because, why? Because I guess they weren't used to receiving a call from their son or their daughter. Of course, that suggests to us that the average mom just doesn't get the kind of attention that she really should, the kind of appreciation in everyday existence, everyday exchanges. That's not the way to treat a lady. To ignore them, to not recognize who they are and what they're doing in our lives. Especially our mom, our wife, our grandmas. We would do well, first point here, praise and thank the ladies in our lives. Praise and thank them in the everyday exchanges of life, not just Mother's Day. Speak of our love to the mom and the grandmas and the wives in our lives. Speak of our love to them. How many of you, and I don't mean to turn this into a tender time for you, but nevertheless, how many of you, your mothers, have already left this life? A lot of us. Are there times when you wish you just had one more moment of exchange with your mom? Just to tell her that you love her and how much you appreciate her? Remember with respect that mom, that grandma, that wife who is no longer with us. Reverence them, respect them, appreciate what they did while they were here on this earth. So Exodus 20:12, among the 10 Commandments, right? Honor your father and your mama. Oh, it doesn't say mama, does it? Means the same thing. Honor your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. That emphasizes importance to showing honor to our father and our mother. Ephesians 6:1-3, which James read for us. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and your mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on the earth. 1 Peter 3:7. Okay, guys. Husbands, in the same way, be considerate as you live with your wives and treat them with respect as the weaker partner. That could be debated. Okay. And as heirs with you of the gracious gift of life, so that nothing will hinder your prayers. Think about that last phrase. Yeah, wow. So that nothing will hinder you. You are supposed to be considerate as you live with your wives and treat them with respect, so that nothing will hinder your prayers. Again, is that not emphasizing the importance of this instruction? I can see all the gals are writing down right now. They're going to highlight in the Bible. But it is important. So let's go back to the story of Ruth and the verses that were read for us. Just then, Boaz arrived, so Ruth is going out to glean in the fields. You know, she's following along behind harvesters, and Boaz wasn't there when she first showed up and started gleaning. Just then Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters. "The Lord be with you." "And the Lord bless you," they called back. Boaz asked the foreman of his harvester, whose young woman is that?" Now, I want to read between the lines. I have a feeling Ruth might have been a very nice-looking young woman. And Boaz noticed. That's okay. That's a good thing, right? Noticed in a good, healthy way. "Whose young woman is that?" And the foreman replied, "She is the Moabitess who came back from Moab with Naomi. She said, 'Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters.' She went into the field and has worked steadily from morning till now, except for a short rest in the shelter." So she's a hard worker. She humbled herself to do this, and then she's out there as a hard worker. So Boaz said to Ruth, "My daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with my servant girls. Watch the field where the men are harvesting and follow along after the girls." So he's giving her a little notch up in the pecking order, right, to glean. "I have told the men not to touch you, and whenever you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars the men have filled." So he's showing her consideration. The biblical way to treat a lady is to provide for her safety and security. Guys, we're supposed to do that, right? That's supposed to be hardwired into us. Provide for her safety and security. Provide for her physical protection. For her personal emotional esteem. A lot of guys will step up and, they'll protect them physically. Sometimes we're the problem with their emotional esteem. And we're supposed to provide for their safety and security in an emotional sense too. And provide for her sufficient sustenance, what she needs. Not just the food, including the food, but what does she really need for her sustenance to keep her living in a healthy way? The Amish make provisions for the care of their parents. What do? Yeah. They build a house on the farm, the family farm, so that mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, have a place to stay, and there's the assurance of continuing care for them as long as they live. That really is quite a good example for all of us, isn't it? And while it may look a little different in the more modern age for the rest of us, wouldn't we all do well to take responsibility for the well-being of the ladies in our lives? The moms, the grandmas, the wives, the mother figures, especially aging moms and grandmas. We need to note their needs, take care of their concerns. They call and they say, I hear something is going on with the water heater, or whatever it is. And rather than, it's, okay, I'll check it out. Right? Go check it out. Take care of their concerns. Maybe there's nothing wrong with the water heater, but go check it out. Clearly demonstrate our devotion to them. We are devoted to them. We demonstrate that devotion to them. Show them our love. Tell them you love them, but show them in tangible ways, concrete ways. So Matthew 15 records Jesus saying, "And why do you break?" He's talking to Pharisees, and they are making some exceptions for what they do and don't do, all to suit themselves. And he says, "And why do you break the command of God?" We read that command this morning. What is it? honor your father and your mother. Why do you break the command of God for the sake of your tradition? In other words, for the sake of what you've decided you want to do to serve yourself. For God said, honor your father and mother, and anyone who curses his father and mother must be put to death. Whew. But you say that if a man says to his father or mother, whatever help you might otherwise have received from me is a gift devoted to God, he is not to honor his father with it. Thus you nullify the word of God for the sake of your tradition. Now, I don't know what the ultimate gain was there, but there's some ultimate gain for that child, for that adult child. So instead of providing for mom and dad, they're saying, no, what you could have expected, that we've set that aside for other purposes. So they're ignoring the basic command to honor, respect, take care of your father and your mother. 1 Timothy 5, 3 and 4. Give proper recognition to those widows who are really in need. But if a widow has children or grandchildren, these should learn first of all to put their religion into practice by caring for their own family and so repaying their parents and grandparents, for this is pleasing to God. And 1 Timothy 5:8, a little farther down in that chapter, if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for his immediate family, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Whoa! You see some emphasis coming down here? Pretty strong. Need to note needs. We need to take care of concerns. Let's go back to Ruth, to chapter 2. And starting with verse 10. At this being the generous instruction of Boaz, what did he say to his harvesters? He said to Ruth, I'm going to tell them that they're not going to bother you. You're going to get a notch up in being able to glean. And you need water, whatever you need, you feel free. And I'm telling my foreman and all the harvesters that it's okay. So, at this, she bowed down with her face to the ground. She exclaimed, why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner? Remember? She's an outsider. Boaz replied, I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. How you left your father and mother in your homeland and came to live with a people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. May I continue to find favor in your eyes, my Lord, she said. You have given me comfort and have spoken kindly to your servant. She continues to be humble. Though I do not have the standing of one of your servant girls. At mealtime, Boaz said to her, come over here, have some bread and dip it in the wine vinegar. And when she sat down with the harvesters, he offered her some roasted grain. She ate all she wanted and had some left over. Now, I bet she took leftovers home to Naomi. As she got up to glean, Boaz gave orders to his men, even if she gathers among the sheaves, which apparently was not what she should have been doing, even if she does, don't embarrass her. Rather, pull out some stalks for her from the bundles and leave them for her to pick up. And don't rebuke her. Boaz said, I've heard what you've done for Naomi. It's common knowledge what you've done for Naomi. It's a good thing. And what's he doing? He's rewarding her, right? He's acting as a servant of the Lord here and rewarding her. So the biblical way to treat a lady is to reward her love and her loyalty. Reward her. Recognize her gifts and her giving. Whatever she's doing that is beneficial for those around her. Realize the cost of her commitment. Reward her in both words and works. Ruth left home. She felt called of God to take care of Naomi. Naomi didn't have anybody. I'm only reading between the lines. I suspect that Ruth must have had some siblings and And so mom and dad were going to be okay, and Naomi had nobody. And she goes and the cost of her commitment, she takes care of Naomi. She goes where Naomi goes. Reward the moms, the wives, the grandmas, the mother figures in our lives in both words and works. Do something tangible that shows them, that rewards them for their loyalty and their love. So the conclusion of a season like basketball or baseball or whatever it is, or the conclusion of a school year, often brings reward ceremonies. Have any of those started going on yet? Anybody? Okay, so often individuals are being rewarded for their faithfulness, their work ethic, or for exceptional efforts, right? Accomplishments. Rewards include applause, certificates, trophies, even scholarships. Those are tangible tokens, right, as rewards that honor the character and the conduct of an individual in that particular sport or in that academic. At the commencement ceremonies for a small school, a young man received recognition for his academic and athletic achievement. When he received his recognition, he came down from the podium, and this was a young man who came from modest means. He was raised by a single-parent mom. And he comes down with his rewards, and he goes straight to his mom. And he hands them over to her and thanks her. Gives her a hug and a kiss and thanks her for all that she had done to raise him, all she had done to provide for him, to encourage him, to help him achieve what he had achieved and been recognized. While the ladies in our life may be they may be happy for a hug. Most of them are. We would do well to reward them with awards as well as accolades. Huh? Good job, Mom. Good job, honey. You've been a good mother to our children. Good job, Grandma. You're building some great memories for us. They should be rewarded with awards, accolades. We should be declaring to the world their deeds that were done in love. And we should be graciously giving gifts to them from our heart. All right, honey, what are some of the most special gifts that you ever received on Mother's Day? Cards from our kids. How about when they were growing up and these little things they colored out on a piece of paper? Huh? And then I'll bet his grandma, same thing. Huh? You get those little, homemade things, and they're coming from the heart. It means so much just to recognize them. I had a gal in the Highland Church who several years ago, I was preaching from Proverbs 31. And I was preaching about all the things, that a mom, a wife ought to be doing, and all those. And so she said, it just feels like, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, and it felt like, in a way, that I was kind of beating her up on Mother's Day. And so I apologized. We all have responsibilities as parents, and so I was kind of hitting on that. But I recognized, that you got to balance those things out. But there's a passage in Proverbs 31 that is so appropriate for this whole idea of how we treat the moms and grandmas and wives and mother figures in our lives. And it's verses 28 through 31. Look at them. Her children, the gracious woman, her children arise and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all, hubby says. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. The greatest thing of all. A wife, a mom, a grandma, a mother figure in our midst who fears the Lord, who respects the Lord, who reverences the Lord, who believes in the Lord, who lives a life that demonstrates that. She is to be praised. Give her the reward she has earned, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. How do we treat a lady? How should we treat a lady? The way to treat a lady is to honor them, respect them, not just today, but every day. Make that a goal. Will we remember to do that every day? No. We are frail creatures, and we'll have forgetfulness will be something, but keep working at remembering that every day. Provide for their well-being. That's not just paying for the bills and putting food on the table, but it includes that, but it's also provide for their well-being in many ways, emotionally as well as physically, and reward them. Reward them in tangible ways. Yes, with your words, but also with the things that you do for them in appreciation. The things that you do to acknowledge them, to lift them up, to give praise to others about this woman, this mom, this wife, this grandma, this woman who has made it her purpose to be a mother figure to lots of people, to lots of children. So ladies, happy Mother's Day. May God bless you richly. May you be honored greatly today, and may you be remembered every day for who you are and what you bring to your families and to the family of God. Heavenly Father, God, we do thank you for the women that you have placed in our lives, for these mothers and wives and grandmas and the mother figures, Lord, who, regardless of whether they have their own biological children, that they are mothers. It's built into them, and they mother those around them. They are a mother figure to the children of the church and children in the community. We ask you to bless them richly and help us to always remember how to treat them in a positive and an upbuilding way. In Jesus' name, amen.